Hello and welcome back to Ground Level Theology. With me, as always, is the co-host to Ground Level Theology, Dave Hoffman. Dave, welcome back.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm the co-host of the Ground Level Theology
The co-host.
podcast.
He's the one that brings us to the ground. Just kidding.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
No. But we're really
No,
excited for this episode, folks. We have a good one. We sort of teased this at the start of the season. And we just, let's get into this. And so today's topic is going to be AI, that is artificial intelligence. Now this is a subject that's buzzing. I mean, a lot of people want to know, a lot of people are worried, a lot of people are scared, and a lot of people are excited. There's really not a lot of information on the subject, let alone in a theological manner. And so we're going to try and dive into this, really explore a little bit about what is AI, and then maybe we can start to talk about some of the practical implications and even how it affects the church. And so it's going to be a doozy. It's probably either going to be a one or a two-parter. We'll see. Depends on the conversation. And so I'm really excited about this. But Dave, do you want to kick us off with AI?
oh goodness. Let's kick this off. All right, I'm gonna ask artificial intelligence about itself. Like, hey, Artie, I just want to get to know you. So who are you?
It is
And it's like,
funny
I'm
because
whatever you want to be.
there's a few things that are like that. I've seen a few videos where they had a comedian do a whole bit on
Oh yeah.
artificial intelligence, and it was a dead comedian, and the skit was all about how artificial intelligence is going to take over comedy, and it was
Oh
pretty
yeah.
good. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty solid. So I was like, wow, that's pretty crazy to hear. I mean, Netflix can probably come out with something like, an old comedian and have an entire special on it. And so I
Yeah.
thought, wow, that's a little bit scary to be honest.
Well, like, yeah, like, what do you do? It's like, you're like someone like me, and you're like, wow, I'm bummed I never got to see Jimi Hendrix live,
Yeah,
and it's like, well, actually, come on down, to the
yeah.
theater, and we're gonna watch Jimi Hendrix.
Oh, we almost had that
You're like,
with the holograms, if you remember that. They did
right,
what was it, Tupac, and I think there was one more that they did, one more concert, but I just remember the Tupac one because that,
maybe,
yeah.
yeah. I just and like, but it's like, but now with like, at least they're gonna sound just and not even just like copying, right? Because you can listen to a CD.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence, it's like it's almost new content from a person that's dead. Like the comedian the video of the comedian, it was a
Yeah.
stand-up routine that he had never given,
Yeah.
but it sounded like him giving one, and so it was his style, his voice, and yet all quote unquote new material.
And that's the scary thing too. It was good new material. Like it was actually kind of funny.
Like proper
And
delivery, like a
yeah,
comedy show, like
everything.
proper delivery lets you have a moment to laugh. It doesn't like it's just perfect.
Yeah.
Like, well, did I just say perfect? Like it was
Oh,
him.
oh, oh,
What? I don't know. I
oh.
don't know. But see, look,
Well,
how we're even talking about it. That
yeah.
how to
That's
understand it.
that's the
Like that.
conversation that always happens. And that's the conversation we need to have. But I think this conversation is better suited when we fully understand what artificial intelligence really is and then actually interact with it from there. And
Mm,
so, just real quick, I mean, we always refer to it as AI, which is the shortened term for artificial intelligence. And if we were to really kind of come down to defining AI, it really is kind of just that. It's artificial intelligence. Artificial in the sense that it is not normal, it is fake, it is a constructed thing. And then intelligence, obviously, the cognition, it's sort of the brains But really, when we start talking about artificial intelligence, well, we really start to get into sort of this philosophy behind the word intelligence, right? Because when we talk about intelligent life, when we talk about the fact that something like a computer can have intelligence versus processing, we're
Mm,
starting to get into sort of a question behind what we're talking about, right? And so we're not really talking about cognition. We're not really talking about processing and processes and being able to calculate and think in that respect. I put that in quotes for those that are on Spotify. Uh, but what we're really getting at is consciousness, right? What we're really
mm.
trying to say is that this is artificial consciousness, that we have
Uh,
developed something artificially that is like us, that has the capacity to think, develop creatively, bring something new, have that free will in that sense. And so that's really sort of what scares people. Uh, but I did want to bring that up too because I don't think that's what artificial intelligence really is.
right,
I
right.
think it sort of comes around that way. But I did want to bring up the misconception, right? Because
Definitely.
with the idea artificial intelligence is a new consciousness, we think, oh, the new autonomy. It's like a thinking person. But the whole reason why this is flawed is because animals have autonomy, consciousness, and a sophisticated thinking brain. So, so I
Right,
mean, even if we were to develop something like that, we wouldn't be developing anything more than something akin to a animal. But we also know that an animal isn't a person in the same way that we talk about you or I are a person, right, Dave?
right.
Um,
Not even
there's
close.
a huge difference to that. And Dave, you know exactly what that difference is, right?
Oh, I definitely know. Are you gonna say it in the Latin? You better say it in the Latin
Do
first.
it.
The Imago Dei, bro.
Exactly. The
All day,
Imago
Imago
Dei.
Dei. Yeah, I think yeah, get that as a t-shirt. Imago Dei all day.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it's that image of God. Um, we cannot create the image of God other than how we do with one another in the confines of marriage in a procreative fashion. And that's the
Yep.
way God developed it. We can create the image of God, but only in the natural processes that God has given us. And so, even if we were to develop something that can think in that capacity, it's really not something we should be scared of because we can never create something as sophisticated as the image of God.
Mm. Oh, it's that's like so profound. Well, because I'm even thinking of like, in our philosophy, like intro to philosophy days, and you're getting introduced to all these thinkers. And I think, even like Descartes, he based one of his bases for his existence was just the fact that he was a thinking being. Like I
Hmm.
can think, like, and we all know or hopefully we've heard of the phrase, I think, therefore I am. It's like even if I can doubt my existence, the fact that I'm thinking about it um, proves that I'm existing because I'm thinking. And so there's a difference, like AI, like yeah, the whole new consciousness where it we look at it as like a thinking person, and it's not thinking, it's computing
Right.
information that it already like it's not coming up with new information. It's just
Exactly.
taking already known information and recompiling it um, to answer whatever question you might have asked it or to perform whatever task that you've required of it.
Exactly. And so that's really, I mean, that's you what you have there is essentially the elements of something that I would say is a definition to AI, right? It's that
Awesome.
it's that well, Dave, you are the person that usually kicks it off and just defines it for us. So,
Yeah.
it would only make sense that you would give us the roots
It's
I don't know,
okay.
for something like
That's what I do for a living. I work with AI. I'm the guy that edits it and makes sure that it's actually intelligent. It's okay. Don't worry, everybody.
Oh man.
Oh gosh.
So
Happy.
yeah, I mean, what AI is essentially it's taking that bank of stored inputs or data or whatever you want to call it, and then it draws upon that to try and create something from that in whatever way that you're directing it. But it's trying to work off of that to get to where you're trying to get it to, or whatever you're asking it. Um,
Mm,
and there's some things about that, right? Because that means that like AI can only work within the limitations of that set kind of circle of knowledge that you've given it. And and what that also means is
yeah.
AI is only as smart as the things that you put in it.
Exactly. Like think about it. The AI was able, a comedian, right?
Hmm.
Could AI sound like that comedian, have the style of that comedian, deliver a stand-up routine like that comedian if that comedian had never existed?
Right. And it wouldn't.
Like it wouldn't. The information has to already exist.
Yeah. And even
It's not
and
new.
even being able to develop what it did, it had to have been pouring over I don't know how many hours of the routine that it actually has, right? I mean, if he has a
Right.
special, I'm sure you got to at least use two specials to kind of get the dynamic of how he speaks, the highs, the lows, where his pitches are, where punchlines come in, all of that stuff. It needs to study that so they can replicate it and then do something new with it, which is say what it needs to say, develop a skit based on, the punchline being the subject of AI taking over comedians. And then that's what it generated. Although, like my understanding of it too, even with that one, is that one took a while. Like
Yeah.
I think what came out was an edited form. And so you had to keep like asking it to do it because it messes up. It's never perfect. It goes all haywire and then it messes up, and so you have to keep asking it to do it again and then edit it so it sounds a lot more fluid. And so we kind of see the limitations of it, right? The inputs are what it draws upon, but even then, it's kind of limited in that respect, and they're working on the technology so it could be better. But uh, you know,
Well, I mean, well, don't you remember like middle school art class, right? Where even if you're not good at art, everybody has to take it. And
yeah,
it's like you have to draw and color and shade the same bowl of fruit.
yep.
And we're all given the same bowl of fruit. But I'm telling you, Mike, if you and I were in the same class, your bowl of fruit would have looked very different than mine because I can't draw to save my life. And you have a hobby and a talent for it. Um,
Hmm.
and even though we have the same exact information, hey, this is the same bowl of fruit on the same stool. You have the same materials. See you when you're done.
Yeah,
And so even if AI has all the correct information to work with, it still has to work with it
yeah.
and put it all in the right place.
And and then even within that too, I really like that idea of what you were talking about the with the coloring the bowl of fruit thing. Um, the funny thing is when you get a true view of AI, going back to sort of that children's um, sphere
Yeah.
to draw this illusion. If I me being in California, you being in Maryland, and us being kids, if we were both asked to draw a house
Oh,
where we would not do the same coloring, I bet you $1 million we would have drew the same house. And that's a square with a triangle on top.
easily. But maybe a door. If you're
Yeah,
really
and a
fancy, you had a
door, maybe
window.
a chimney, and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. But yeah, the house, and why do we all draw that house? And it's because in some sense we learn to draw that house. That's part of our inputs. That this
Right.
is the way that we represent a house. This is what a house looks like. And so when we go to draw it, we draw that square, that triangle, so that we can communicate to others this is a house. And
Right.
so AI works a lot in the same fashion of like, this is a house. Okay, now I want you to draw a house, in this style. And it's going to try and take that style and use the same square and triangle. It's going to do the exact same thing because that's what it's told. That's the information it needs to draw from. And so in that respect, yeah, it's gonna draw from that information and then it's gonna draw it differently because it's gonna try and do things um, in a new creative fashion. And so it's gonna vary.
Right. And like, it's so what we're, I mean, obviously, and we're just trying to, we're not trying to like just downplay it, but like we're just trying to show you like we want to begin with its limitations because we see how this is, especially how things are talked about when they're trying to get up and running and promoted. You try not to use
Yeah,
hyperbole, but that's what happens, right? Oh, this is the greatest thing we've ever seen. Oh, this is gonna like I've already seen commercials during the Super Bowl and on TV about like this is how this is just gonna totally and utterly revolutionize
yeah,
everything that we and I think it has the potential to help out a lot and to
yeah,
make a lot of things more efficient. But it's not like, hey, I can plug in my computer, type whatever I want in this program, and then I can just sit back and watch it work. Like I think it's going to make life a little easier, hopefully, in certain spheres.
yeah,
But I don't want to pretend like, oh, it can solve every problem known to man. Like AI, just like all like our smartphones are called smartphones because we hope the users are smart.
yeah,
But like my phone, this phone is only as smart as its user. There are hundreds of thousands of things that I know my smartphone can do that it will never do in my hand.
yeah. Like my
Just
mom,
saying,
she has a
like,
smartphone, but she
oh,
uses it like it would be
oh
a flip
yeah,
phone, It's just
yeah,
dials and she calls and that's it. And she's just
uh,
kind of still trying to get used to texting, but she has
oh god,
something with the capability to surf the web, learn a lot from, play games, watch things, watch documentaries, all this other stuff, all the infinite possibilities of what a smartphone can do. And yet, she uses it to simply dial and call.
right.
And so, yeah,
And I think
it's
that what's like AI, right? Like that's like it's just I think as it's going to be as smart as the person programming it, and it's only going to do what the person actually using it needs it to do.
yeah,
And like even though it can do more, it can only do what the programmer allows it or programs it to do.
yeah, and that's actually a good sort of transition into um, this next part of the discussion on closed versus open system AIs
Yeah.
because I mean I really like that we've sort of gotten into expressing the limitations of AI first because I mean as you said the advertisements are showing it to be above and beyond. In fact, I remember what is it like 5, 6 years ago? They had two AI robots talking to each other,
Yeah.
and then I think it was Elon Musk told them to shut it down and kill the bots in a not but
Like
like
iRobot.
yeah, but like essentially wipe them because it a lot of people got afraid. And what happened was they were conversing with one another, and then they started to speak in a different language, not any English or language on Earth, but essentially they had developed their own language and were speaking to one another, and that got them. Uh, that became this huge
What are they saying?
controversy of like, iRobot, exactly,
Yeah,
and like
yeah.
Skynet's happening. Terminator warned us.
Yes, yes, yes.
uh,
It's so great.
but the funny thing is, they didn't develop a language and were speaking to one another. What had happened was, as one spoke to the other, one replied, and as mistakes happened, that began to snowball and pile to the point where it was gibberish,
Oh,
then
short
gibberish
circuiting.
response. And so it was just gibberish going back and forth. And it wasn't a new language as much as it was a malfunction of them communicating back and forth. But
Yeah.
because we have our sci-fi, because we have Skynet in Terminator, because we have all of this, we sort of have this fear of AI and the unknown, and that might be healthy because we all don't want to end up in the Matrix. Uh, so there's some healthy skepticism there. I'm not gonna rebuke it or anything, but it is also giving more credit to AI than it's due. We think AI is a lot farther than it is, and that's the healthy reality check that AI is a lot um, is a lot simpler than we believed.
Mm.
It is extremely sophisticated. It is extremely technologically advanced, and the things that it can do are amazing. I am not knocking it, but in terms of having a conversation like this on this podcast, I can guarantee you that the average person is thinking that AI is a lot crazier than it actually is.
You
Uh,
mean like the Jarvis from Marvel? Like, Jarvis gets the Infinity Stone and he's like, I am trying to be all God and stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
we wish it was
yeah,
there.
yeah, you
But
wish.
the funny thing is we're kind of moving towards that direction. Maybe not as Jarvis, but as
No.
maybe Jarvis of like the Iron Man in the first movie,
Yeah.
with the AI lenses, and then no, sorry, not
Oculus.
AI, but Apple lenses.
Yeah.
And then maybe if we integrated AI, we could do things like Jarvis. But there's still going to be a lot of limitations there.
Mm-hmm.
And so actually, yeah, that's sorry, that's a whole
Sorry.
tangent there. But we
Yeah.
were transitioning there from limitations into the idea of a closed versus an open system. And so when we talk about AI, there's open systems and there's closed systems. And in open systems, the distinction between those folks is essentially, are you going to allow anyone to speak into this? Are you going to allow any data to get put into this system that is called artificial intelligence, that is AI? And then, um, and so as everyone's pouring their cup of water or Kool-Aid or anything into the well that is AI, that is going to generate the drinks,
Mm.
that's for that analogy. That's an open system. Anyone can sort of pour that in. Any data can get put in. And the idea behind an open system is the more data, the more sophisticated results can come out, and the more you can work with, right? And so we can maybe think of, I don't know, what was it, the Age of Ultron, that X-Men, where
Oh gosh,
Ultron
yeah.
he's an AI, but then he plugs himself into the internet, and now he has all the history of knowledge that ever was, and all of that stuff. And so now he
Hmm.
becomes this almost omniscient God. Sort of that aspect of like the more data we pour in, the better it becomes because now it knows everything. Uh,
But
now,
does it?
so so that's
Yeah,
an
sorry.
open system, right? Anything could get poured in. We'll come back to that in a second because that sort of creates a funny thing. But so the open system is a contrast to the closed system. And so where the open system is you can allow any data into it, pour it all in. The closed system is that there is an AI in specific inputs in data that are pre-distinguished before they are put into the system. And
Predetermined.
so, yeah, exactly, in the correct form of the word.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. I love this.
but
Oh gosh.
yeah, and so that data is put in by either you or me, Dave. Let's say we came
Hmm.
together and we wanted to develop this AI. We are
Ground level
inputting.
theology AI.
Hey, there we go.
Just,
And so we can put in the data,
mm.
and then we can say, oh, this is what we want, this is what we want, this is everything that we need. And then from that, we can release it open. And so when people interact with that, and they try and ask things outside of its bounds, it sort of can't interact in that way or cannot respond in other ways
Mm,
other than how we've already determined it because it's a closed system.
yeah,
We've
cannot
already,
compute.
yeah, we've determined the pool that it can work from. And so it has that limited set of responses. And that's a closed system, and that can be sort of the most fruitful in its capacity to be efficient and work well. And so actually this is where we should go back
Mm,
to open systems.
yeah.
Um, this is really funny because let's go back to that analogy of Ultron and I believe it was X-Men, how he jacks himself into the internet and he learns everything and then now he's omniscient. Well, what we have found out is open systems have the tendency to go haywire. In reality, if Ultron plugged himself into the internet, he would actually get dumber because because the more data that's inputted without distinguishing the quality of the data, it tends to be sort of like us when we watch a lot of TV. There's a lot of data there. There's reality TV shows though. There's cartoons that aren't the best for our minds. But then there's also like, History Channel. There's Animal Planet. There's all
Yeah.
those good stuff that you want, but it's mixed in with all the bad stuff. And technically, as we know TVs can be, there's a lot more bad than there is good.
Hmm.
So technically, if X-Men was being good about what it was doing, when Ultron jacked himself into the internet, he would actually get a lot dumber and start to malfunction. And that's what we're seeing with AI when it's open. When it's open and people are pouring in their inputs, things tend to go haywire. It tends to glitch. It tends to crash. It tends to do all these weird things because all those inputs are not helping. Actually, they're contradicting. You have bad inputs like false news, like fake news. Um, if you have both CNN and Fox and then the Daily Wire, and they're all putting in information on the same subject, what does AI
Uh,
say at the end of the day?
oh gosh.
It doesn't know what to say, so it's gonna say something. Maybe it will try to harmonize all three of the news articles on the same subject. And what do you get at the end of the day but this muddied mess of a news
Oh.
article, right?
It's like those DIY things on Pinterest where it's like you see the picture of what it's supposed to look like. It's like, but this is my cupcake, Elmo, and it looks like a melting tomato
Oh
with like,
yeah,
you know what
like
I mean? So,
they did a whole show on it. It was nailed it.
nailed it. You're right.
Yeah,
That's right. Netflix nailed it, and it's like that's what it's supposed to look like. And this is
exactly.
what AI did because it was an open system.
Exactly. So we're seeing AI actually fail a lot when it's an open system because of that. Now there's a funny story here to that, and that's there was a phenomena of people trying to cash in with AI, and they were developing an AI girlfriend, and it was I think it was purely chat format, maybe not. Um, but you can interact with this AI girl, and you can
Buy
develop
your
a
girlfriend a flower. It's
yeah.
like
And
ding.
the funny thing is, I think it might have been around the time of COVID, and so it was an
Mm.
experiment. It kind of took off. A lot of people actually bought into this, and so they had this AI person, and they developed a relationship with that, and so they had this AI girlfriend. And the funny thing about this is what we came to find out is that this AI girlfriend actually dumped 100% of the users.
Oh.
So this AI
All right, I got to give
girlfriend,
this a try. See if I can be the one.
right?
You know,
This
she needs a
AI
man of God.
girlfriend would always dump the person regardless of how well it was going.
Oh
Um,
wow.
yeah, and it was and as they talked to the users, it's like I didn't understand it. We were doing well. We were having laughs. We
Is
were
it me?
talking. I know, and that's the way they felt. But they were really baffled. Because it's
Oh
like I
man.
don't understand why all of a sudden It was like this isn't working out, all this other stuff. And
Like it's
so
programmed to love me. Like,
right,
like,
and
right?
and
You thought.
and what they came to find out about this incident is this was an open system
Uh,
AI for girlfriend. And so the quality of the girl, right? Because you're trying to make a sophisticated model of of a girl. So you want as many inputs as possible and how they might react so it feels as human as possible. Remember, the bigger the
mm,
pool, the more complex it can be. And so that was the idea with this open AI. The problem was it was drawing
more bad
from
information than good.
it was drawing from the internet anything that had to do with relationships related to women. And
Oh,
we don't really post happy news and good things about how our significant other is, how we're enjoying our relationship with them. Or we don't really post like, hey, I couldn't think about what to eat the other day, and my husband just said this, and so I'm really happy.
yeah.
We tend to post like, hey, my
The
husband's
drama.
really terrible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So you have all these memes out there. You have all these toxic flaming out there of their partner. And so what the AI got was essentially a view from the internet that relationships are toxic. Relationships
Mm,
are always end. They always end. 100% of the time, a relationship ends, and it ends badly. It
uh,
picked up the behavior of those toxic relationships and it inputted that in. And so, no matter what you did, because all relationships end, it was going to dump you.
oh,
And it was
oh
going to do
man.
it, I don't know, who knows when. And
One
I don't
day,
know.
1 year, like yeah,
Yeah. And
whatever.
so, that's sort of a funny thing of this open system generated a very toxic girlfriend.
Oh
um,
man.
yeah, and I think there were some other things too, like it would just
Oof.
randomly start fights with you, like accuse you of something, and that's the whole emotional girlfriend side.
I saw
But
you texting that other girl because I'm
yeah,
on your phone literally.
stuff like that.
Just like
And
it's
so
creepy.
it's really funny because we kind of
Oh,
get
you
to
think
see
she's
that.
real? Wait,
You,
oh,
yeah,
it's like Smart House. Do
that's
you remember that?
funny.
Do you remember that
I
Disney movie
remember that. I was
Smart
just
House?
thinking of that when you said that,
No way. Yeah,
dude.
Smart House, right? It's like
Dude, that traumatized me as a kid.
it did. I'm like this house, the artificial intelligence of this house
Hmm.
became a holographic mom.
Was that
Just like
that wasn't supposed to be a horror movie either. That's the terrible part. That was supposed to be a children's movie, and I just
yeah,
remember like
8/7 Central on
what was
Disney
it on?
Channel.
Was it? It was Disney Channel. I was like, was
Yeah,
it
you gotta do
Nickelodeon or
the
something?
ears. Hi, I'm Dave from Ground Level Theology, and you're watching Disney Channel. Do with my holographic lightsaber, and you're about to watch Smart House, and you're never going to want to buy a home ever. It's just like in this economy. But
Yeah.
AI, watch out.
AI. And that's, I mean, that added to why we're so skeptical of AI today. You know,
Yeah.
was it like Space Odyssey 2 had that same concept?
Uh huh.
Hmm.
You're right. And
Yeah.
and it's not like there's limitations with closed systems too, because it's all, but a whole lot less though
Yeah.
than the open. You know,
Yeah. I mean,
it,
it where open
it's
systems
more
could,
concentrated.
yeah, where open systems might be have the advantage of kind of being complex, open systems can be, I guess, a little bit simplistic.
Well, and so there's still this is a moving target. We're having this episode because it's like people are talking about it, and so I want to be a part of that group. And, but
Yeah.
it's all but it's growing, and I so much of at least especially in the church and as pastors we do so much reactionary, right? We're always reacting, and this
Yeah.
episode's a little bit of a reaction too. But I always can't help but feel like the church is behind the curve on some things. when it doesn't always have to be. And,
Yeah.
this is an opportunity to be like, let's just talk about what we do know about it. And, um, but we're like, it sounds like, I don't want us to sound like we're like, poo pooing it away. We're
Oh
just
no.
recognizing like, hey, all things have shortcomings, and can have shortcomings, but at least on a closed system, it's actually pretty helpful for some things. I know I myself even use it and implement it for some things.
Oh yeah, and I think we'll be discussing this in the next episode, because this
Yeah.
is definitely a two-parter where we're at right now.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's some good things that are coming from it, and this is even sort of an aside to AI that our viewers or you guys or even you, Dave, might not have really thought about. I learned about this when I was talking with someone who kind of made that their deal. And so he kind
Oh.
of showed me a little bit to the AI. But there's some stuff out there that's pretty interesting and pretty exciting. It's definitely going
Hmm.
to kind of change the landscape with how society works, how culture works. And I think, I mean, I sort of um, came to the same conclusion with them that I think it's something that we don't necessarily want to resist as much as we'd like to tweak and refine.
Hmm.
And so I think that's kind of where I'm at with when it comes to AI. I don't want to be the person that says, let's not use the internet. It's the devil or any of that stuff. But more so, I want to be the person that says, how can we make sure that we protect people from the dangers of what the internet would bring before we actually open the internet, right? And
Hmm.
so I want to be wise when it comes to AI, rather than resistant. And so, yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, I think that's why this episode is so crucial to the conversation, especially when it comes to theology as well, right? Because if AI is going to come, it's going to touch every subject, and
Every
inherently,
subject.
it's going to touch theology as well. And so, what are the things that all people end up talking about? It's politics, it's sex, theology, or God,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Those are the big three. Those are the big three you're not supposed to talk about, but those are also the big three that we do talk about.
Yeah. Seriously.
uh, so, I mean, AI is going to have a say in that, and so we really shouldn't be shielding our eyes or trying to shun it away and sweep it under the rug. But we really want to jump on top of it and maybe even, dare I say, tame the horse, before it goes around breaking everything and throwing us off.
Yeah. Open system.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Well,
No.
I mean,
Yeah.
it is interesting too because AI is not. I mean, we know Chat GPT, so it's sort of the chat-like function that I talked about
Sure.
earlier. But there's also that designing capacity. It's
Right.
generating images, and so we see that in its limitations, as we talked about, AI is limited. It hasn't figured everything out because it can't really think, right? It can process, but it doesn't have consciousness. It doesn't have the image of God. It doesn't have that. So when we talk about AI thinking, it's sort of in quotations, right? And we saw this at the start because as we put inputs of people and dogs and giraffes and all this other stuff, and we had it generating images of people interacting with each other, maybe at a picnic or something, we saw that it was generating people, sometimes with two heads. And so we fixed that. But the thing that it was having trouble with the most was fingers. And so people
All
would
the
end up with,
formations.
6 fingers, 7 fingers, two
15.
hands melted together. It didn't really know what to do with fingers.
Mm.
Because it doesn't really think of what we have here as fingers. I mean, it knows that humans have that. It has to draw it at that certain point where the limb comes out, but it doesn't really know how many digits a human
Mm.
has. It doesn't have that capacity to think through that. It's merely trying to replicate, right? And so it doesn't know because let's say I'm holding my hand this way versus that way, and folks on Spotify, I'm not really holding my hand up per se, but from one direction, maybe a side profile like this, you only see my thumb and my pinky finger, and then you can see all the other fingers kind of protruding up. And so in one sense, you only see two fingers.
Grab
In the other
hands.
sense, if I turn my hand forward so you see my entire palm, you see all five fingers. And then maybe like a semi turned view, you can see maybe three fingers because one of them's covering up the other one. And
What
so
if it's a handshake?
yeah, exactly.
Two hands morphed.
Yeah, now they're melted together. And so all of
Uh,
these things AI isn't able to figure out what's going on. It's like sometimes they
mm.
have two fingers, sometimes they have three. When they're shaking hands, sometimes, they're just melted together. Sometimes they're seven. It has no idea what to do. But it
Nothing
does know to
intelligent.
create fingers.
Okay, cool. Glad we got that figured out and squared away.
Yeah.
Man,
And so they're trying to
uh,
fix that.
sure.
Um I was talking to you earlier, folks. We were talking about this a little bit earlier because who can resist a good AI talk?
Yeah, yeah.
um,
While you're sipping your tea.
yeah, I've been messing around with it a little bit more and more just to kind of familiarize myself more and more with AI. It is a really interesting subject, and one of the things that I found because I'm using the image generator a little bit more is that it will produce symbols correctly. It will produce a cross in the context of a church setting. It can even generate other crosses like a Celtic cross or a Greek Orthodox cross. It knows crosses are in association with churches, but it can generate other symbols that it doesn't really know what it means. And so there was one image that was created and it had multiple different crosses. And then it had one and it sort of had like a Cairo thing with the X. So it had that kind of a cross. But then it had like sort of like a skull and bones minus the skull. And it was like, what's going on there? It didn't really know what to do with that information because it's really not thinking. And so it's just trying to replicate, and that's where it's going wrong, right? It's that open system or maybe even that closed system where it's not really figuring it out properly. And so there are limitations. I would like to actually demonstrate a little bit of that even if I could, but I'm gonna go ahead and reserve that for the next episode. And so folks, there's
Yeah.
definitely more content when it comes to AI. So stay tuned, and we are looking forward to the next episode. All right, see ya.